Hello, everyone. Again, welcome to another fascinating, fabulous episode of speaking to the best marketing leaders across the world. And we have today Greta Wilson. She is the person leading marketing for Pitney Bowes, the American logistic giants that we all know of, right? Greta comes from an interesting experience set where she has spent a good amount of her life working at a large giant tech company like an IBM to spending a good amount of time leading marketing for various verticals for Bloomberg and then moving to something like a logistics. She has had a great sort of experiences. So it's going to be a fun chat, Greta. Thank you so much for agreeing on such a short notice for this.
Happy to be here. Nice to see you.
Uh, Great, great. So, Greta, I think like I told you before the conversation when we were chatting, like I am just the guide for the podcast. You are the driver. So feel free completely to drive the way you want it. My job is only to give directions and make sure you're not falling off the path. So I'm just the guide there, right? So I think let's begin with Greta, knowing you, Greta, as a person that way. I'd love to get a sense around where you grew up. You were telling me about you grew up into in Rochester, spent a good amount of time in New York City, went to Connecticut. Now you said it feels like home, but I think would love to know more about how has life been for you? How did you enter marketing as a domain and then climbing up the ladders across the last 20 plus years to a couple of decades of your journey, right? So love to get a sense on that, and probably then I think we can dive deeper into the details of it. But let's begin with that.
Sure. So yeah, I grew up in Rochester, New York, and I went to college in upstate New York. I actually got a master's degree in the United Kingdom, so I went abroad for that. But I started in an ad agency following, and so you could say I had a plan of getting into the marketing space all along, but that's not actually true because I have an undergraduate degree in applied mathematics. So I always think of myself as left brain, right brain, because I also minored in English and I always tried to do more creative writing classes. And I've always loved art, painting, drawing. I still do it, as a kind of a hobby. So I was left brain, right brain, good with numbers, but really into like creative kind of exercises and work. So when I got my master's in operations research, which was applying math to business situation settings. And I was fortunate enough, actually, between my undergraduate and graduate program, I got a job working for a consumer packaged goods company in the United Kingdom called Jacob's Bakery in their marketing department, working on a brand campaign. So it just sort of was like I got exposed, I got experience. And then in my master's program, when we could do some side projects, I tend to try to do them in a marketing related space. So I had an interest, I got exposed, had an interest, and then I tried to kind of take my master's program and put it in there a bit. When I left, I was fortunate enough to come across this job opportunity at Young & Rubicam, Y&R, one of the leading advertising agencies on Madison Avenue in New York City. They had just started a brand study and they'd done research of brands around the world to people around the world, a huge sample, and they were doing all sorts of statistic and data modeling. And so they were looking for graduate students, either master or PhD in sort of that researchy kind of quantitative area. So I kind of fit that bill. I got a job and I started there, and sort of the rest is history. But I will say when I was in that, I was doing data and analytics kind of stuff. And so that was appealing to me. And then I would meet with the account teams. So I'd go to different accounts. They would ask for me to run a lot of data, and they'd be very specific, run it against this segment, run these brands, do it in these markets. And whenever I looked at the data, I was curious myself, boy, I would be interested in looking at like these other segments because what I'm seeing here is this. And so whenever I met with my accounts, I was like 23 years old. I was young. I was always saying your client should really consider this because look, I ran this data and I saw this opportunity and I think they really would benefit. So they ultimately said you should join our strategic planning group,
Uh-huh.
which I did. And that was a lot of more market research, doing qualitative research or quantitative research, informing our creative teams on kind of the insights with the client and what the opportunity was to drive a creative expression that they would turn into some beautiful creative campaign. I left.
Just to think, Greta, I'm sorry I'm cutting you there, but you are speaking about data science and data analytics 20 years before now. So 20 years ago, right? So it is not as matured as the AI and analytics dashboarding and the statistics fancy things that we see today. It would be very great to also understand what did data analytics in marketing look like then, because I still feel people still haven't figured out what it is. So what
Yeah,
were you doing a couple of decades ago was going to be a fun part.
that is such a good question. I will tell you, it's very funny, and I don't want to date myself, but first of all, before I get into that, one of the things in my first job, they had a class on what is the internet. It's the internet. And I was like, what is this thing? And I went to a class and they showed you like what we know as the web browser. And they said, you
Uh-huh.
search like write a sentence and an output. I was very disappointed. I'm like, that's it. That's the
Oh,
internet. So it was
oh,
an interesting time, but
fun, yeah.
regarding how we did data science, it was very manual, as you can imagine. We wrote code, computer programming code to run the
Right.
data out, the model we wanted to see. And we had set up some good code. So we were eventually able just to kind of do some selection, but it was basic. I mean, there was not a lot of advanced analytics. Sometimes we would do a regression analysis. We'd do some statistical modeling, but we would actually laugh because we'd sit in this computer room and we were like, I'm so glad I got my master's and my PhD to make this chart where we were like moving dots around closer to the lake. It was
Uh,
basic stuff, but it was cool. I actually still think they offer this brand study today called Brand Asset Evaluator. And it,
uh-huh.
it was brilliant. It was a great way to win business and it really, they did a lot of good analysis. Anyways, yeah. So data science a long time ago. It's come a long way. But
Yeah.
but I'll just close and I'll be more
Yeah,
quick.
sure, sure, please.
I left there and I went to IBM and I started in market research, working in the advertising group, doing research. And then I moved into various marketing communications roles when I was there. So I was there for 12 years. I only left IBM because, and this has sort of been my path ever since. The woman who went to run and be the CMO at Bloomberg was an IBMer. And so a few of us, and I really admired her. I still do. And a few of us, we were the chosen ones and we got to go along with her. So I ended up ultimately running marketing for their media properties. I was there about 4 years and I left there to go to Pitney Bowes because of some IBM executives who were running the business here. And actually somebody I worked with back at my agency days who ended up being my boss when I was here. He was the chief marketing officer and he recently retired. So I always made great working relationships, from very early in my career that carried me on to my other jobs and career opportunities. So I always tell people just be really good at what you do and, kind of paves the way for opportunities down the road.
No, that makes super sense. I think this is so interesting. You touched upon three parts to it, right? One is you touched upon a left brain, right brain aspect of it. Second, I think you touched a lot upon the history of data science 2 decades ago of how it looked like, and having a class on what is an internet. I think people like us would never even imagine doing that. Um, the third part that you mentioned very interestingly is about great working relationships, which I think, I mean, when we at Pepper have always evaluated leaders, and the way I also personally do is one question I ask every leader is, if you come to a company like ours, right, for example, how many people do you think will follow you through in this case? And if the answer to that is a good number of people, it's about the kind of relation that people maintain. So let's take one on one of those, right? Let's start with the first part of left brain right brain analogy that you mentioned, Greta, right? Greta, I have a thesis personally that every mathematician can be a filmmaker, but not every filmmaker can be a mathematician. People might kill me for telling this across the board, but I just feel if a filmmaker tries to learn maths, it's going to be too difficult as compared to a mathematician wanting to watch a lot of films and think creatively. You, unlike many marketers, have been on the first side of things, which is a mathematician turned into a filmmaker. I mean, you get a sense, right, of the different analogy. How has that helped you particularly grow up the ladders? Because you have very strong hold on numbers, which I don't find a lot of marketing people have too great on. They're still struggling. It's not that they don't want to learn, it's just that it's not intuitive. Hence the job of marketing analysts. But just would love to dive deeper into there. Across companies, how did you look at numbers as a big chunk of your marketing?
Sure. I would disagree with your theory, first of all,
Maybe.
only
Yeah.
because I think it's equally hard for somebody who's very analytical if they aren't wired that way to see, judge, think creatively. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's sort of like an ingrained skill set that you kind of either, I mean, sure, you can develop in either area, but sometimes it's hard. It's as hard for the creative person to do the numbers, sometimes
Yeah.
for a numbers person to like get that creative idea or think, or I would never be able to come up with something like that. So
Uh,
anyways, but I will say in the field of marketing, and especially where marketing's gone over the years, that combination is not common, but super beneficial to be both analytical and to be creative, because marketing, probably just like any profession, it's so analytical now. It's everything's about the data. There's nothing I'm looking at, like on my other screen right now, has a gigantic dashboard that I spend every day in, of many. It's just, kind of part of working in this world. I think the benefit for myself has been to see numbers and kind of make and maybe match the creative, tell the story fairly quickly about what I'm seeing in a way that others can understand, who may not look at the data and like be able to completely understand what it's telling them right away. Or on the flip side, someone who's very analytical can look at it and they try to explain it and you don't understand what they're explaining. So the combination is a great one to have as a marketer, I think, in today's world of modern marketing, both analytical knowledge, ability to see it and make heads or tails of data, and then communicate it to others, to story tell what's going on. So it's, again, the skill set has served me well.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. No, I mean, I just have that theory because maybe of a lot of people around me that I see struggling across it. Maybe that might be wrong, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. But I hope you got a sense around what I meant by that. Basically, it's having a combination of both, right? Gira, I'd also love to dive deeper into your current Pitney Bowes experience, right? And that's a platform for also people to understand how does marketing in a giant logistic company like a Pitney Bowes, right? And just correct me if I'm putting it wrong in this case if I call logistics as a wrong vertical for you guys, but I hope it is logistic technology plus plus in
Yeah.
general. So correct me over there and also tell us what does marketing for you means in this case. And maybe, I mean, how do you look at that differentiation of demand generation versus brand marketing versus content marketing overall? Because as an owner, you're responsible for all these things together, right? So
Yep.
love to get a sense because it's an uncommon kind of a company. People usually think of marketing being cool in the consumer tech side of the world, maybe in the B2B large IT services giants in the sense. But this is a niche category, so love to get a sense around that.
Sure. Yeah, I've only ever worked, well, I guess Bloomberg was B2C, but the audience was a financial audience that usually was consuming our media content for business professional reasons, right?
Right.
We reported on financial performance of companies, what's happening in business, et cetera. But IBM and Pitney Bowes, both B2B. So what I would say is that what we do at Pitney Bowes, focused here, is we have incredible technology. That's our heritage. We've been around for over 100 years, and we started it out with the postage meter, which I think we're most known for still today. And we are a global company, and the postage meter is a very innovative technology that started in 1920 that allowed people to print postage on their mail rather than go to the post office and have to manage all of their mail through the post office. It was a benefit to the post office as well as to the business. But we, over the years, obviously continued to innovate, did a whole bunch of other things beyond a postage meter, but related always technology. And where we are today is big with SaaS technology, and we've moved heavily into shipping because, as you can imagine, I always say with or without Pitney Bowes, mailing is a declining industry market. Less people are mailing because if you can send things digitally, it's more cost effective to do so, like invoices and bills and such like that. But shipping has grown, particularly COVID saw the big surge, and people have, found it very convenient to order things and have them shipped. So shipping is a big growth space. So we have moved into that and had been for many years. It's not that we just jumped on it in the last 3 years, probably for the last 30 plus years. But we use, again, innovative technology to enable others who are shipping things, whether it be large enterprises to a small e-commerce and everything in between. We have amazing technology that provides shipping solutions across carriers with discounted rates, tracking, receiving, the whole thing. So that's been a big part of what we do, among other things. We do have a pre-sort mailing business, which is still in more of the logistics space. And we also have a financial services organization. We actually have a bank, Pitney Bowes Bank. We lease the equipment that we give to clients that are using our posted meters. You can use now, pay later through our credit solution or product. So we have a range of things that we do. But ultimately, we're a global shipping and mailing company. And from a marketing standpoint, we are a major driver of revenue for the business. In fact, marketing, and over the years, and I've been here about 10 years, has grown at least double in the amount of revenue that is coming directly from marketing without even a seller. So we're engaging with audiences digitally. We're getting them to become aware. We're getting them to consider us. We're getting them to come on our website. We're getting them to convert. We're then getting them onboarded. We're getting them activated. We're getting them to make sure they're using, finding value, cross-selling them into other things that they could use, renewing them, everything digitally. And we do about 12% of our total company's revenue just through that marketing motion. Also, of course, we have larger clients that do require sales interaction, and we're creating leads and opportunities for our sellers, creating the content that the sellers need to be engaging with these audiences. And then, of course, on top of that, continuing to grow and nurture our brand so that above all of this, we have the strength of a Pitney Bowes so that people, believe the trust, the reliability, the confidence in this brand as a choice partner to go with.
No, super interesting. I think this been very, very helpful for people who are trying to kind of pursue a career like this ahead, right? But I think would love to also dive deeper into the entire Bloomberg stand now. I'm very curious on understanding what does marketing in a content company look like? Is it an advantage to your favor, or is it just like marketing in any other consumer company? Also, as a Bloomberg, like you said, like most of your audience base is actually executives in large BFSI or financial services as a domain, basically. All people over there who are trying to kind of consume the research knowledge that you're trying to push out. You are effectively the thought leader when it comes to Bloomberg, right? So how difficult is it to maintain the brand image on one front and also to create the kind of content and maintain that quality of content that comes out as a matter of Bloomberg as a header on top? So just wanting to dive deeper in over there. I mean, what were the, like, if I were to put it as a question, what were the delta amount of net new learnings that you had and your Bloomberg experiences across the would love to be getting sense.
Well, the Bloomberg experience was super interesting, and talk about getting to tap into the creative side of my interests. The Bloomberg's business is largely this financial terminal solution that they sell to executives. That's really like the core of what they do. It's a wonderful product, and it's rich with information, and it's, they have amazing white glove service to their clients. Then there is the Bloomberg media properties. The Bloomberg media properties, they have television, radio, a website, magazines, mobile, and those were great ways to get to the newsmakers, to interview them, to actually give that news first to this financial product, right? To break stories that moved markets. But at the same time, we would, not the same time, like I would say, I think it was like a seconds delay. It wasn't immediate, but it was almost immediate. We would put it into our media properties. The media business wasn't like, it was there to really market Bloomberg, right? It gave them great exposure. It wasn't their revenue machine, the product was. So we didn't have a big budget to focus on elevating Bloomberg, the media properties. And when I was there, we were in a different place than I think of now. I think perceptually, the Bloomberg media properties have a really strong, good reputation, have good viewership, good audience appeal. I think when I was there, it was a little bit in a different place. So we had a harder job, arguably. So I didn't have a lot of money to work with. I had a tough product. I had a big uphill to climb.
Right.
So what we did is we got real creative, and we said, how do we have this amazing set of assets? Like, I could put people's stuff on our television. I could put stuff in our magazine. I've got inventory that's not being utilized through our ad sales team.
And the expensive one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an inventory people would want to desire for.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
would do barter arrangements with events where I knew they had very influential audiences attending. And I would say, I would love to have an exclusive presence with Bloomberg and our properties, and I'd work with our TV producers. And so it was a management of church and state, because our editorial had to be unrelated to any marketing program I could organize. I would ask the TV production studio, would you be interested in interviewing any of these people that are attending and speaking at this event? And they would be major names, and they'd say, we would love to. So then I would call the event show, and I'd say, we'd love to be your premier sponsor. We will come with our TV studio, which is like eye candy for them to have like a whole TV studio set up, to their attending audience. And we would just want access to your speakers to reach out and do an interview. We'll manage that. In exchange, you can get some remnant inventory to promote your event on our TV network. Blah, blah, blah. So I got a bunch of those done, and there was no dollar exchange. It was like I gave them something of value and they were getting something of value. And it was really, really successful. And I turned it into, and eventually hired somebody who I said, that is your job. Find more of these. We're going to do a bunch of these. That was one example. So it was a unique way of we got a lot of content for our own properties. And at the same time, I was doing a lot of content integration things. Like, I would get our TV executives to be moderators at their event session. So I was exposing our talent, because that's what you're basically tuning in to watch. So that was great. Another thing we did I thought was super fun. We were very big in New York City. Again, that was probably the core of our audience. And we would get so frustrated because we would go to like where all the financial executives would go and have their lunches, and it would always be tuned to the competitor. And so we went around and we picked all these key lunch restaurant places that had TVs, and I assigned them out to our ad sales team. And we basically packaged up a program, and we said, tune your TV to Bloomberg Television for the next 3 months and get a chance to win a $10,000, event at your venue. And we are going to audit unannounced your location for you to remain in the program. So that was what we did. And they agreed or they didn't. We had coasters with our brand. We gave them stuff if they agreed. And we probably got 20 or so locations to do it. And we did audit, and some of them were not tuned, and so they were out, but a lot of them stayed. And eventually, we picked a winner who got it. And we would have had like a special event and spent that money anyways at a venue. So it was kind of a creative way to get what we would have done otherwise and get more out of it. So we did a lot of cool things like that, and it was just, we had great assets to work with. It's a little trickier at Pitney Bowes, but it's a different type of content. I don't know that answered that question, but it was about being creative with low budgets and kind of seeing what we could do. And it was a lot of fun.
I mean, thriving with frugal innovation, I think that would be the right way to put at it. But you guys were really good at it. I mean, now that I realize, every time we saw Bloomberg at an event, I mean, there's someone who's putting the brains behind to kind of get this thing in picture. But that's really interesting. Yeah. Greta, I think moving ahead, want to understand more about the entire concept of how do you go on, like the third part that you'd mentioned initially while you were introducing yourself about people relations. And I think the most important part about even running marketing flywheels has been as much as the people in it, basically, right? I mean, uh, how do you kind of look at getting the right people? Because see, in industries like that of Pitney Bowes and eventually also earlier at like an IBM, right? You don't get experts who are ready to meet in the market. They're damn expensive. I mean, you were to kind of build those expertise with yourselves, right? So how do you go on actually building these people stacks with across for the board, right? For the marketing teams in this case. Second, would also love to understand how do you build these SOPs for flywheels to be done, because what I think is content marketing in general is done by a lot of people. And when I say content marketing, it's majorly because of Pepper. We have seen this across in a lot of companies where content marketing happens, but there's still no single point flywheel for it. Like people are not able to do it consistently well every single day, right? So how do you look at these people and process stack together particularly? You love to dive deeper into extent. This is majorly for the marketing audiences watching this.
Yeah. So, in terms of getting the people, I mean, we are we do a good job of retaining our talent. So there's been a handful of us who've been here quite a number of years, at least over my last 10 years. I'd say the average tenure of the marketing department right now is probably 5 years, but we're looking fit for purpose. So like whatever that role is that we have that we need, we're going to look and explore that. And I will say when we used to all like be in the Stamford, Connecticut location and want to be from a marketing function in person for our US operation. But when COVID happened, we were all working remote, and all of a sudden it kind of unleashed us to be able to say, why don't we just find the best talent wherever they are, because we're all working remote now. And so I would say that's with the average tenure being 5 years and us kind of getting close to that 5 year time. We have hired a lot of people since COVID, and they're not here anymore. So they're very remote. That has been very beneficial because we've been able to open up the aperture to who's out there with skill sets we need. So I do think though, like it's never changing, because marketing and the landscape of marketing, the landscape of what we do is always changing. So we're, way heavier into the SaaS space with our own solutions. And, I'll be honest that no one here in the marketing grew up doing marketing for a SaaS company. Like that wasn't their first job, that the job they've done for the last 10 years was for a SaaS business. So we're a little bit learning as we go with great partners and experts outside to help guide us. But that's an area that I will look for people and bring in that talent. So I think being honest with ourselves about like, what talent do we need, and going and sourcing if we don't have it. At the same time, training, educating, getting up to speed on the latest and greatest is going to be a huge focus. I had a call earlier today with our HR partners on curating marketing education content that we have access to. The thing is right now, there's so many things that people go in and they get overwhelmed. So I said, let's curate it. Let's pick what's relevant to our group, what we're focused on now, so that we can kind of serve it up and help people be inclined to go in and take the time and educate. And then I would also say, make sure you've got what we call change agents. You don't want anyone who's like, well, that's just the way we do it. That's the way it's always done, because you'll never move forward. And marketing changes so much every single day, and the technology available changes every single day. You have to have like a mindset of change agents that want to understand and learn and explore. So like one team member set up this kind of group team place where we're constantly, like he usually leads it, but posts content, either a podcast or an article or something about some new marketing area or something we've been talking about and exploring, and shares it out. And so that the rest of the team is kind of looking in and there's dialogue. So I think it's important to continuously invest in the education, but also don't expect, if you don't have the change agent, you don't have the change agent, and you're going to need to sometimes get the skill sets you need, and go to the outside again if you don't feel like you can totally get it from within. From a content standpoint, you're absolutely right. It's definitely not, I don't have a dedicated content team. It's like part of everybody's job.
Right.
Content's like brand. Everything we do is, a brand thing, and everything we create is a content thing. So, I would say we are healthy with content, but we don't have a strong content strategy. We have great content within strategies of things we're pursuing, but we don't have like a content strategy. And I do think it's a big opportunity. I mean, content's everything. I can't even tell you how much content I consume. I'm really big into podcasts now. So I'll I consume tons of it. It's super helpful. And when you find something you're interested in and it makes a difference. I will also say from a search standpoint, I was looking into like sports, a sports marketing program. And so I just searched for, and I found this great research paper on like activation costs associated with sports marketing programs. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow, this is super helpful. It was just like thought leadership, data, research, really helpful. That's exactly what I needed. And of course, it was sponsored by a sports marketing company. They put it together, but like that was smart content because the next step was, who am I going to call to help me? I would have absolutely called that particular brand because they were a thought leader in my mind because they output that particular content. So it's got huge benefits.
That is super cool. I mean, okay, I have a follow-up question right away, right? And this is what you already linked it. You mentioned about technology, right? And AI being the beast in the house right now. I'm right now streaming out from New York. But before this, I was in the West Coast. And like I was telling you before the call, almost every alternate table conversation have been all about AI and generative AI, and here's this tool, here's that tool. And yesterday, I was in a place in Manhattan over here, and I heard someone saying someone else, hey, about this AI tool, what is it? It's like, "Hey, gosh, don't speak about AI at least for now." And there's a big culture shift that I've seen across the boards. But given this is the hype of the town right now, how do you guys use generative AI into your ecosystems currently?
Yeah. I mean, I like to think of AI as allows improvement. Like, I know it doesn't stand for that, but to me, that's what it stands for because it doesn't guarantee it but it allows it. And the improvement could be time. It could be content, output. And so from a marketing standpoint at our organization, we are absolutely tapping into it. We utilize specific marketing AI tool. We use Jasper, which creates content within like marketing formats, whether it be email or UX kind of design, or it's sort of the shells kind of work for marketing output. But I also use AI, I'll give an example for my own benefit from a time standpoint where we have these kickoff events and we have to come up with a theme every year. And normally it would be a brainstorm with a handful of people for 2 hours. And you can just go in and say, give me 3 creative, 3 words or less that creatively describe, and you put in like kind of the focus for the year, the strategy, and, come out and then you iterate and you finesse. And 20 minutes later, you've got quite a nice set of theme options to consider. So like from
Right.
a time standpoint, that's great. From a content standpoint, we also have a license with Copilot. So like whatever we suck into it, it's protected so that, we're not putting anything in that we wouldn't want outside our walls. So sometimes I'll put in communications that I'm working on and kind of ask for like a different way to say it or with a particular tone. Again, it just, I get ideas from it and my team is using it in that way. They're sometimes ingesting like transcripts, summarize this in 5 points. Like there are so many great ideas of improvement, but I would never say it's going to be the answer and the ultimate. There's still the human intervention for sure that needs to occur, but it's definitely, and we're at the scratching the surface of what's possible. I'm sure there's just years to come of what we're going to see with this for sure.
No, that is super great. I think, Greta, thank you so much. These insights have been really, really helpful. So thanks so much for this. I think we're gonna move to a fun round. So we got to know Greta as a person, Greta as a profession. Now let's look at Greta as a rock star, maybe. And I think we have a set of these rapid fire questions for you. Might come from all facets of the life overall. So you got 6 seconds to answer. Just whatever's on top of your mind that comes in after this question, just shoot it out.
Okay,
So we'll start with that. Are you ready?
go for it.
Okay, perfect. Now, what are the three tools that are always open on your laptop? Three tabs that are always open on your laptop.
On my laptop, PowerPoint, my dashboard, and my email.
Okay. Uh, what's the last movie you watched?
Oh, the last one. I've been watching Slow Horses on
Are you
Apple.
watching Slow Horses on Apple
Yeah.
TV? Yeah. In fact, I was speaking to someone else a couple of days ago. They were watching Slow Horses too.
It's good.
So it's good. I mean, maybe I'll have to look at it.
Yeah.
But that's good. What's the recent podcast you've heard?
The SaaS podcast.
The SaaS podcast. Which one? Which episode?
Oh my God. There's like hundreds of them. What was the one? I listened to.
What's your favorite one? What's your favorite one?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember them. There's so many. They're all sort of the same story. I'm always listening for how did they scale? You know, what was their answer to scaling? And I would say it comes down to luck, timing, a great product. You know, there is no silver bullet. That's what I'm always listening for. But of course, that's just not the way it works. Otherwise, we'd all be scaling immediately.
Yeah, but that's good. Now, what's your comfort food?
What's my comfort food? I mean, I always say my desert island food is French fries, which if I was left on a desert island with only one thing I could eat forever, it would be French fries.
Nice.
But I try not to eat French fries that often. That would be really bad. But I love them.
Got it. And what's a humble brag for you? What's your humble brag?
My humble brag? I guess I would say, well, and there's probably my children, of course, because you know, they're your everything. But I did do the Ironman twice.
You've done your Ironman twice. I'm gonna catch you up after this, but that's super good. When did you do that?
In 2019 and 2021. So it's been a few years.
So it's not been too old as well. Now I completely understand why you don't eat French fries. That's okay.
Yeah. I probably did then because I could. I was entitled. It's a lot of training.
That is a big brag. I mean, it's not humble anymore. It's a big brag. You're like a 2 times Ironman holder. So that's super good. And the last thing, right? What company would you recommend when it comes to culture? IBM, Pitney Bowes, or Bloomberg?
Oh, I would say Pitney Bowes has a really it's changing, but a really kind, nice. It's a very nice place to work. But I love Bloomberg. It was type A. You got to be on your A game, and I loved it. Very different. And IBM was great too, but IBM was big, very different, big. But Pitney Bowes is a really nice. I don't know. They're all good. They're just different.
So can I put it this way? For culture, Pitney Bowes amidst the 3. For speed, maybe Bloomberg amidst the 3. I'm just placing them up. I'm sorry. I'm just confusing you with these things, but I'm just kind of putting out. And the last one for you. Say for example, if there was one profession except for in marketing that you would have done, what would that be?
Definitely would have been a creative director.
Oh, it would have creative director. Do you plan to do that after you retire?
I have a bunch of hacks I'm gonna do that will tap into marketing, creativity. Yeah, I got a laundry list of stuff.
Nice. No, but that's super great. You've been an awesome guest, Greta. Thank you so much for this. Really kind of you and appreciate spending time mid of the week with us and helping us with all the knowledge that you have and all the fun parts of it as well. But thank you so much. It's been a fun episode.
Thank you. Very fun speaking with you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.